Yep, it's that time of the day, or week, or month, or even a year. I don't know, whatever. It's an awful start to this. But I'm not starting over. It is February 15th, 2023. Cranky Comic Book Chat. I am Taylor. Welcome, nerds. All right, I'm done. This is the weekly comic book review thingy where I read comic books every week and then I rank them. And I start with the worst. I go to the best. So in order to get to the best, you have to watch all this garbage in the middle and stuff and the beginning and it is what it is. All right, rousing start to this. Okay. You ever read a Yelp review that starts like, I hate hamburgers. And I had this hamburger, it was horrible. I hated it, 1 star. And you're like, well, why the hell did you eat the hamburger, you goddamn moron? You don't like hamburgers. It ties in because Nightcrawlers #1, Sins of Sinister, blah blah blah. Cy Spurrier. I hate Cy Spurrier books. I don't like his writing. I've read this book. I hated it. I didn't like his writing. 1 star. Don't recommend. I tried. I like Sinister and so Mr. Sinister, and I was trying to read some of these event books and figured I'd give it a whirl, but this is just god awful. The art is Paco Medina, I think, and that's fine. But like the writing is just pure out and out gibberish. It doesn't make a lot of sense, even in the ridiculous context of the Sins of Sinister storyline, which I don't really want to spoil a whole lot. But, I mean, it is just hops all over kind of nonsense. There's characters that I just don't care about, and things happen to them I didn't care about. And honestly, the whole thing is 22 pages of gibberish. I did not want to finish it. Like, if it were a hamburger, I would have, chucked it away halfway through and been like, I'm going to go eat some pizza. But because of you lovely people, I read this all, and I just, man, was it bad. Nightcrawlers #1. Oh, and speaking of should have known better, I tried again. Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants. This is better than Nightcrawlers, but not by much. This is Al Ewing and Paco Medina. So same artist. Artist not bad on either of these. Al Ewing, turns out I don't like a lot of his stuff either. This feels like a bad homage to Chris Claremont. Like a lot of references to powers that you kind of already know. Like Storm is a totalitarian psychic knife bullshit. I'm mixing all that crap up, but it just really feels like that. And then you also just get it in the middle of what turns out is not a very good event. I like the initial book of Sins of Sinister, and that's kind of why I got this. But I'm done with these kind of weird crossover-y, make it amalgamy titles because they're just not good so far. 0 for 2, and this is another one where I don't want to talk about it a whole lot more. But I'm going to for a little bit. It just doesn't feel like Al Ewing has a good ear for dialogue, and it really feels like in this, it was really noticeable in this, and I really didn't like it. These are both look, the back, the front, whatever. Hot garbage. Hot garbage. All right, next. This one came out last week. Storms of whatever the Sinister came out last week too, whatever the hell it's called. How I Became a Shoplifter, issue #1. Tom Breyfogle and Daniel Hilliard and Jimmy Kuchak and Gabriel Fazzoni and Jorge Perez and this is a comedy kind of book and it has some moments. There's bits about juggalos in here and there's bits about what else? Just stealing stuff. I read this last night and none of this is really memorable enough to stick in a lot of ways. It's got an interesting enough point or interesting enough idea of these thieves that are small town thieves, and so that's the setup. Basically, I mean it's not much of one. 2 kids are small town thieves, and then they have to do thieving stuff or they break the law. And then there's 3 stories in here. Yeah, chapter 1, How I Became a Hot Child. Okay, 1 is a story of revenge against one of the characters' brothers, and it's all right. And then there's a Juggalo story, and is there 3 stories in here or 2? Is there? Oh, and then there's another one. Well, nope, there's only 2 stories. Oh, no, there are 3. There are 3. But they all kind of together. It's Juggalos and Smash Mouths. And it's another one of those where the dialogue especially just feels off. It just feels, and maybe that's the theme of this week, when the dialogue just doesn't feel natural. When you're reading it, it just kind of jars, it scratches in your head. You're like, that's not how people talk. That's not right. And I know dialogue's tricky. I get it. I wouldn't want to write the right dialogue. I can barely speak dialogue. but it just doesn't work in this book. And the art is mostly fine, and it does have some humorous moments, and there are some like fun things about juggalos and the Smash Mouth and like what is considered good '90s music and all that. But it, not great. All right. Speaking of bad dialogue and over the pot, okay, I tried with this book too. Fantastic Four, number 4. This is just feels like a middle of the road Fantastic Four story. Like you finally, the first 3 issues are, oh, we're in the future and something happened and everyone's mad at the Fantastic Four. If you can guess which member of the Fantastic Four would have done something that would have made the world mad at them, you're right. And the details are explained in this story, but it's like really just telegraphing its punches. It feels like somebody that's read a lot of Fantastic Four and then likes to spout some scientific jargon while describing the Fantastic Four's exploits or having the characters speak like just jargonese. But yeah, it's all right. I mean, if you love the Fantastic Four, you might like this. But it's not one of the finer things. It really plays up and over exaggerates Reed, especially, and which I guess I'm assuming has been done lately, and has turned him into a caricature of a scientist. And that's this. It's fine. I'm done. I don't care. I try to get it 4 issues. Not for me. I don't know. We're gonna try and get this a little bit quickly because I got a lot of books to get through. And I'm hungry. Taylor's hung. Torrent, number 1. Mark Guggenheim, Justin Greenwood, Rico Renzi, Keith Wood. This is all right. And like we're in the all right section. We're gonna hit them, and there's a lot of just all right this week. And they're probably all interchangeable depending upon my mood. But that's where this one's going right now. Torrent, number 1. It's a mom who's a superhero, and things happen to her, and there's consequences of her being a superhero. It also feels like superhero by the numbers. There's the art. Justin Greenwood I kind of dug. It's kind of like cartoony, a little bit of Chris Samney mixed in. Not 100% accurate with who I'm referring to as that, but like there's some elements of it, and maybe Ted McKeever as well. But the story itself, not necessarily predictable, but like once the beats start happening, then it's really like, oh, you know where the song's going, you know where the whole chorus is, you know what's happening, and that's this. It's just nothing special, nothing really new other than it's a new character, and I've got enough new characters. I want new stories, and I know that's harder. I know that's trickier, and that's why this is middle of the road. It's fine. Barbarians, or Last Barbarians, it's fine. Brian Haberlin art and writing on this, and it feels like it wants to be Rat Queens, which is a much better written book and stuff. This is apparently a world where everyone has one job, or they have to like decide their one thing and be that one thing. And this person's having trouble fitting in, so she's a barbarian. I guess that's not one thing in this world. It doesn't really, I don't know. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. And they don't really expound on that a whole lot, other than like, know your place in the world. And this person doesn't know her place in the world. She's got a dumb brother who follows her around. And it's a setup for something. But it's not a very interesting setup. The art is okay. I kind of like it. It's kind of a weirdly unsettling combination of like hand-drawn illustration with like computer coloring. And it doesn't always work for me. And the coloring is like, yeah, it's a lot of like two-tone, like warm orange and blue, which, you know, not a bad combination. But there's a lot of that used throughout this book with like varying variations in there. And it's a setup for an adventure, but it's not an exciting one. You're just told people are bad or good, and then you have to react to it. And instead of showing, they're telling, and that's not great as far as a comic book or any kind of story goes or anything. So it's all right. I won't be reading it. I like the cover. Maybe my favorite cover this week, maybe. But nothing great. I feel like I should toss a book over my shoulder this week just to do it. But hang on. We're going to go back. Look! Nightcrawlers number 1. Jesus, I hated that book. All right. Lazarus Planet, Dark Fate, number 1, one-shot, DC, whatever. I hate DC's titles. I've mentioned this before. They just call it Lazarus Island, Lazarus Planet, and then, I don't know, just have a bunch of... It's an anthology. There's like 4 stories in here, 3 stories. I don't know. Nothing, not a lot of memorable ones. There's a mediocre Huntress story with really bad lettering. Like, good fucking God, is lettering bad. It's purple and white and blacked out, and like by the time you get and gradient. So by the time you're at the bottom, it's tricky to read, and you have to stop and think about reading instead of just reading. And you're thinking about how hard it is to read the lettering, and then you get annoyed, and then you're reading the Huntress story. And Huntress isn't Arkham and putting these bad guys away. And it's either the setup for a Huntress story or the setup for one of the bad guy stories. I'm hoping setup for the bad guy story because that'd be more interesting because the character is the Moth and whatever, but it's not going to be. It's going to be the Huntress. And I realized I was talking way too quickly there, but that's why I felt like getting through that one. And then we have Doom Patrol story, which is written and I think drawn by the team that's going to be doing the new Doom Patrol book. I will give it a shot. It's written by Dennis Culver and art by Chris Burnham. The art feels like kind of weirdly Doom Patrol-y, a little bit bright and a little bit whatever. And it's like it feels like a throwback to the 60s Doom Patrol in some ways. It doesn't feel odd enough to really be true Doom Patrol, but it's a short story, so I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt. It is my favorite thing in here. I'm biased. I like the Doom Patrol. There's an intro to a new character in here. I won't show that page because that's a spoiler. But there's a new character in the Doom Patrol, and it's a little bit of a different Doom Patrolian dynamic than especially if you watch the show, it'll be a little bit different. But it'll also feel fairly familiar because a lot of characters that were in the show are also in this, and it's all right. It just doesn't have that. What I like about the best Doom Patrol stories is they're just bizarre, and this wasn't bizarre. It's pretty straightforward. It had what they thought was a bizarre villain, and I hope that's not it. And then whatever. Then there's another story, first appearance of Circuit Breaker, who ties into the stillness, I guess. And then there's a Spirit World story, which I don't know if it's a new character or not, but both of those are pretty forgettable. The Spirit World story does have John Constantine in it, not in a great role. And the art, actually, of the Spirit World one was not bad. Who did the art on this? I realize I'm reading the book instead of talking to the camera because I'm a rookie and this is my first day. And my stupid computer just went to sleep on me, so hopefully we're still recording. Geesh, all right. Alyssa Wong is on the writing, and Heining, I'm sorry, butchering that artist. It's fine. Yeah, we're in the fine section. 6.0. It's all about right. All right. We're starting to get a little bit better. We have I Hate Fairyland or Fuck Fairyland number 4. This is just stupid fun. Like, do not read this book if you're easily offended or hate nudity or Green Bush pizza. There's a pizza place in Madison called Green Bush, and this makes me never want to eat it again, but it's delicious pizza. It's a stupid story. It's written by Scotty Young, art by Bean. I can't remember the first name. I'm not going to pull it out, but like, it's an over-the-top adventure romp starring Gertie, who's not a very likable character. It's a pastiche. It's satire. It's just, if this is pure escapism. It's hard to review because it's really just stupid. Like, it is god-awfully dumb. But sometimes god-awfully dumb is fun and entertaining, and that's what this is. This is god-awfully dumb and fun and entertaining, and there we have it. We're going quick today, people. Monarch number 1. Rodney Barnes and Alex Linz and Louise Nicht. Okay, so Rodney Barnes, I can't remember what he wrote before. I think Philadelphia, I think. And this is Aliens, maybe, or Trapped in the Metaverse, maybe, or something. There's a rivalry. There's heroes. The art is kind of sketchy. It's kind of a, like, you don't really know what the hell's going on by the end of issue number 1, really. You know there's a rivalry and a kid that hates the main character. You're not really ever clear as far, or the motivation they explain. It's like, okay, I get it. It's jealousy is the motivation, but it doesn't feel true. And then there's monsters and aliens, and so yeah, it's an interesting book. It's a little bit hard one to read. I actually read it last night. I flipped through today because I had to remind myself what it was about, which is not necessarily the greatest of signs. There's nothing in here that really, really, really stuck, and so I probably won't be continuing it. But it is an interesting premise, and if the premise is what I think it is. If all of this is virtual reality, then it's kind of interesting. If not, then I don't know. It's all right. It's better than fine, but it's not fantastic. All right, next we have dumb fun as well, but a little less dumb than I Hate Fairyland. We have Murderworld Moon Knight. This is Jim Zub. Fox, Guy Fawkes, Ray Fawkes, Leroy Fox. I can't remember there. Whatever. Arcade. I like Arcade as a villain, and this is Arcade Squid Games with life model decoys of heroes. So this issue, there's going up against Moon Knight, sort of, who's been reprogrammed and does the dumbest shit ever, and I kind of dig it. I kind of wish real Moon Knight, I know it's a comic book world, I get all that, I'm not a moron, well, mostly, I'm a functional idiot. But yeah, this is fun. I think they should just called it Murderworld, and had it been like 1, 2, 3, 4, because this is really issue number 4 of Murderworld. And then there's one left, and it's like the contestants keep squid gaming and dying, and we're down to the last couple, and it's not necessarily like if you're trying to figure out if you're into it because you want to like see an intricate trap and like really clever designs or really fantastic murder puzzles. That's not this. This is still pretty stupid and still pretty fun, but like you're not going to be like, man, that was good. That was good. That was clever. That was neat. You don't get a lot of that, but it's still fun and stupid. All right. And then we have the Harrower number 1, Justin Jordan and Bram Revel. This is a horror book. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Scream in some ways, but it's like Scream meets like The Exorcist, maybe. Not really, but that's not the best analogy. But whatever. There's this world where apparently the Harrower was a thing, and now everyone lives and tries to be good because they're living in fear of the Harrower. But it's been long enough where like people are forgotten, and then like apparently don't believe anymore. And then turns out what the Harrower, and there's death and murder. Not the most gruesome, kind of sketchy art. And also not the most revelatory horror setup ever, but it's an entertaining enough one. I dig a little bit of the twist at the end as far as that goes, and there's like one of the characters making a twist. My biggest problem is the twist. It's hard to care about because the character that twists and turns you don't have a lot of intro to, so it's not like emotionally like as punchy as it could be. But it's a decent one. If you like horror, you might dig this. I'm not the hugest horror guy. I probably won't continue with this, but it's not bad. All right, we have 4 left, people. 4 left. We can get through this. Or we can just fast forward, and then I'm going to cry, but whatever. 8 Billion Genies, number 7 of 8. This is Charles Soule and Ryan Brown, Scott Brown, Leroy Brown, Ryan Brown. Everyone on Earth got a genie. That's the premise for this book. And we're 7 issues in. If you haven't figured that out, and it's also called 8 Billion Genies. There's 8 billion people on the Earth. In the world, 8 billion of them got wishes, and like every person got one wish, and the first one was the first 8 minutes, right, or second, and then the first 8 hours, first 8 days, first 8 months. Hang on, minutes, days, hours, days, weeks, months, and even a year, decade. We're at decade, issue number 7. So this is 8 decades. What this one does that is different than the first 6 issues is it doesn't immediately jump to decade number 8. I think that'd be pretty jarring. But it goes from 8 years and it kind of like progresses rather choppily into 8 decades later. It wraps up some of the stories that have been going on, and actually this is the most cohesive book of this bunch. It tells the most, like up until now, my criticism it hasn't been much of a story. It's been an idea, but not a great story. And there's still some of that in here, but enough of the things the seeds that Charles Soule has planted start to come to fruition or realize fruition in this issue that I'm like, that's actually pretty good. I'm digging that. It's probably my most enjoyable, other than maybe issue number 1, which I thought was enjoyable, and the rest were decent. I think this is probably my second favorite issue of the bunch. The next last issue I think is going to be 800 years later, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes, but it's at least a little different. If you want something unique and not running your mill, maybe read it collected. But 8 Billion Genies, not bad. I'm betting it's optioned. Every damn thing's optioned. All right, and next we have Superb Spy number 2. Is that what it's called? Oh, Spy Superb number 2. Matt Kindt. Script, art, and letters, and colors by Charlene Kindt. Matt Kindt's art is definitely not for everybody. He's got this weird, sketchy, big-headed style. And it doesn't seem to fit. But Spy Superb is either the world's greatest super spy or somebody that's been, or not, or it's all fiction. And like, the country has managed to like convince all these other countries that there is a spy superb, but really it's just been a bunch of like other people setting up these general population idiots to do things in small chunks and pieces, and they're hapless and they're not spies, but they pull it off because they're not spies and they're hapless. A little bit, or the main character is a sleeper spy and the best ever. So they could go either way on this one, but it's a fun read. It's a fun idea. Some of the stuff happens here that is just enjoyable. Like you're watching this and like the main character is kind of twat and just not a great person, and that's also makes part of it fun. Where you're like, if this character actually is a super spy, then it's really annoying. But if it's just a kind of a really awful douchebag, then it's also kind of funny. And like I don't know, it could go either way. I like this one. I do wish Matt Kent had hired an artist for this. I do think like somebody else's art would have pulled this off a bit better. It kind of reminds me in some ways of Scumbag. It's not as over the top as Scumbag, but I do think that like having an artist that was maybe a little bit more into like crime noir or spy genre would have served it better. But it's an enjoyable book. It's a ton of money. Each issue is $7, $8. $8 and like I don't know how many pages. Did they give you a page count? All right, so you're getting like 48 pages. So it's not well, not quite 48. Whatever. You're getting up to around 48 pages, but still, it's fun. Maybe wait for the trade because it's a bunch of money. All right. Next, this was actually my pick for last week, but the LCS I went to, Red Hammers Games, didn't have it. Still a great store. They bag and board everything. So the ones I bought at Red Hammers, bagged and boarded. The ones I had to go to Green Bay to get, not bagged and boarded. This is not bagged and boarded, but it's still a lot of fun. Northern Station number 3, Sarah Gailey, Liana Kangas, and Rebecca Nulty. This is a murder mystery on a spaceship where all these billionaires are getting killed, and maybe. There's an unreliable narrator who's a recovering drug addict who's been given drugs by this AI, and then the AI has grown into like their own personality and also unreliable and may or may not be lying to the main character. And then there's another friend that shows up in this issue to try and sort things out and help the murder mystery as well, but their motives are unclear. So you get like 3 kind of unreliable characters in this issue, and you're really not sure how it's all going to play out. You're really not sure what's real and what's not. But what is like it's just really well done and super entertaining in its presentation. I like the art a lot too. It's also bright and kind of airy and just kind of not overly gross as far as body horror goes. I mean, there is some body horror in here, but it's just a clean kind of easy to follow. You're pretty much always sure what's going on. Liana Kangas, I liked her art in this, and like I dig in this story. It's one you could probably wait for collection on it at this point, but I mean, hopefully it'll get collected. It's just it's been a breath of fresh air. I didn't expect to love it as much as I did. I bought issue number 1. I was like, well, I'll give it a whirl. It doesn't sound that great, but I liked issue number 1. My issue number 2 made my book of the week when it came out, and this is real close to my book of the week this week. But my book of the week I've got to give it to, and some of it's probably biased because I like the characters. You get Swamp Thing Green Hell number 2. This book has been well over a year coming. I need to reread issue number 1 at some point. I did not before this, and it's still held up pretty well. Basically, without spoiling a whole lot, the Parliament of the Green, the Red, and the Rot, all the parlance in Swamp Thing. If you need some necessary knowledge of Swamp Thing the mythos in order for this to really work. But basically, they're these superpowers that control the red, which is anger and blood, the green, I think, which is nature, and the rot, which is decay, have all decided humans suck and they want to get rid of them. So they start doing that. And then good old grizzly John Constantine steps up. He's like, well, hell no, we're not having that. So he resurrects Alec Holland, who's Swamp Thing, brings him back, and that's this. So a little bit of spoilers. Sorry about that. But that's catches you up with issue number 2. And this is where we start. And it's great. It's entertaining. It's like got some badass moments in here. It's got John Constantine being a douchebag and a prick in a good way, which is like, you can't write Constantine as a nice guy or it doesn't work. Doug Mahnke's art feels a little sketchy and a little bit like looser than I remember it from the first issue, but I still like it. And yeah, it's basically like an underdog story of the the Swamp Thing versus everybody. And I think there's one issue left, and I think it's on time. I think they made sure had number 3 done before they released number 2. I hope. Oh boy, do I hope. But I really want to see where it wraps up. There's a character reveal at the end that I like, and we will see how it goes. I mean, it's just a big, bombastic, lots of fighty, lots of battles, lots of coolness. And just, yeah, if you like Swamp Thing and you like Constantine and you like Jeff Lemire, I'd recommend it. It's my favorite book of the week. And there we go. I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to go eat some almost expired banana cake that I bought at a gas station. I'm probably going to die. Anyways, don't be a dick and don't eat expired banana cake. See ya.